Memories. When I was studying here, that building didn't exist. It was called La Marzotto, and it was an old manufacturing plant. And when we were having our lessons and it was raining, water was coming in, we girls, we didn't have our, oh, it's the same, that's good. We didn't have our bathroom, so it was, so we had to come here. So it was at the beginning of, girls in tech, and it was so difficult. And our professors were asking us directly, why are you here? So we were like, why are you asking me this question? So the fact that I see more even girls here, that men is so interesting for me, and I'm so glad about it. So I was graduated in computer science, and my thesis, yes, more than 30 years ago, was in artificial intelligence and the use of artificial intelligence in the healthcare sector. So we started with working with neurologists and extracting their knowledge and putting it into our system, which was called the symbolic learning. And then we went to the elaboration of images and elaborations of signals, so magnetic resonance to breast or the electromyographic signal. And I created my first startup. I was 28, and my startup was recognized as a spin-off from the Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna di Pisa, which is, an excellency here in our area. Then I created more companies. My company's grown. I sold them. I have some exits. And during my lifetime, I understood that there was a lack of women in tech. So the fact that there were few girls in the technology, and we will talk about it, the activities and the projects that we have created during these years to try to solve this problem. We are at the beginning, but I'm so happy that in this room today, I don't have only the typical percentage that I have, which is about 20-80, and that there's a mix of diversity. So, Professor, mi vuole introdurre? I don't know.
You introduce yourself much better than I could ever do, so I will skip the introduction of the guest, who's an excellent guest for us, and we were extremely lucky that she said yes. So I'm really grateful that you accepted our invitation here. And I think this is the first colloquium for a new program, which is the High Performance Scientific Computing PhD that we constructed together with Sordina IoT Technologies. And this is grew up from a talk in front of a beach in Saudi Arabia. I was there and I met the first time online this guy that was probably not considering me very serious when we started talking at the time.
This is a bias.
It's a bias. But I think this is a very interdisciplinary course. It's a very interdisciplinary PhD program, and I think it's ambitious, and we wanted to have an ambitious first guest. So
Thank you so much.
Let us welcome Daria, and I'm very, very curious to hear what you want to say.
Thank you so much. So, as I said, things are changing, and more or less you are a lot younger. Allora, qui però non mi va avanti la tastiera più. C'ho mica il... lo blocca. Ok, perfetto. Bene, so we know what is happening during these last years. We are really in a new world. So if we think about 30 years ago, the situation was completely different. There was not internet. Just to mention a fact that when I had to go and to select some signals of electromyography for my thesis or some images, I had to take my car from Livorno, go to Siena, because my university at that point, the collaboration was with the Siena Hospital. In order to have one signal, I had to have 17 floppies. Maybe some of you never see a floppy. There were pieces of hardware where you put the 17. Then I had to insert these 17 things into the Olivetti that I had, and I was so lucky that I was maybe the only girl having a computer at that point, because my brother was working in Olivetti. So I had this Olivetti, and I put all the data. I went dancing because it had a lot of time to elaborate the signal, and when I was returning, my professor was calling me, does it converge? I don't know, give me the time. I don't know if it is converging or not. But in this 30 years, things have changed. And the real thing that has changed everything, obviously, is internet. So from the arriving of internet, we get all connected. Before the internet, when I was working in Corso Santa Maria, between us, we had to really work on paper. So when we, for example, participated to the tenders of the European Commission for the projects and whatever, we had to print everything. Just can you imagine that? No email, nothing. So we had these main hardwares, and that was it. I was the first person who took her personal computer to the computer department and say, can I use it? And they say, obviously, if you have it, you can use it. So my thesis was one of the first that was visual, because since then it was all, righe di comando, how we call them. So what is happening? We are now going from the 4th industrial revolution to the 5th industrial revolution. The first industrial revolution, we have studied it at school. It was about the understanding of the human being of the mechanical laws. We understood how to transform energy into something that moves, mechanica. The second was electricity, elettricità. The third was, I would say, hardware, so electronics. And the fourth one, at the beginning of the 2000, the arrival of the Industry 4.0. And now we are in the 5th industrial revolution. So the things that we are seeing, which are now normal for us, so the usage of this technology in the hospitals, in chemicals, in whatever, it is quite normal for us. It is becoming more and more something that we use. So what is happening? We are gathering data. Data. We are having huge amount of data, and this amount of data is going to grow exponentially. So the people that say, artificial intelligence, it's something that is going to disappear, they don't get it. We are talking about that we are going to change completely the unità di misura, so the measuring units, because it is not going to be terabytes anymore, but zettabytes, and it's going to grow in this exponential way. So we have a great amount of data, but till now, the data that we were used to work, where we call them structured data. So when we talk with a company, they have their ERP. When you work with the hospitals, they have their records, they have their Excel files. This is what we are now used to work on. But reality is that the data that now we are using are 80% non-structured, okay? Videos, images, social, and whatever. So the point is, how can we use this kind of data? How can we go over the Excel files? And so in the world, a group of people started to say, well, we can return to talk about artificial intelligence. And I am 30 years that I'm working in computer science, and I never heard about ethics like in the last 4 or 5 years. Why ethics is becoming so important? Because the data that we are using for these systems is the knowledge that we are using. So the question is, are the data that we are using clean, complete, fair? And is there, in this moment at international level, an ethical approach to these technologies? So when we talk about digital divide, just think about that the 1/3 of the population of the world, so if we are talking about billions of people, are not even connected. So if we are talking about the ethical things, is this ethical? That a part of us is so lucky, so privileged, and the part of us it's not at all. So why more and more it is important to talk about ethics? And ethics is not law. So we're not saying that it is something which is okay or not okay from a law point of view, but it's something which is from an ethical point of view, so good behavior and bad behavior. And unfortunately, we know that the technology that we are using is, unfortunately, use a great part of it in a bad way. So when we think about, for example, the web, and we say, wow, that's fantastic, I can make medical people collaborate, I can have a continuity of care, I can have a second opinion. Yes, but we know that the part that we are using is the bottom of the iceberg, and down there is the dark web, the deep web, the violent part, the bad part. So it is humanity that decides how to use technology. And in the same way, if we think about robots, everybody was happy, oh, we're going to use robots in surgery, we're going to use robots in the plants, manufacturing plant, which is true. But in the same time, we know that all of us, we are unfortunately aware that the real robots that we are now using are drones, which are created now to kill people. So the real usage that the world is doing about robots is to kill people. And the first law of Asimov, who learned and read his book, was a robot will never damage, will never hurt a human being, which is not true at all. So it is not about technology, it is about what we do with this technology. And talking about AI, it is even more complicated. Why it is more complicated? Because in the normal, let's say traditional systems, it was us, human beings, deciding if I have an input, I have an algorithm, how I want to change this data with my algorithm. So I have a huge amount of data and I want to find out the structures of the proteins, or I want to do something. It was my knowledge which was formalized, programmed, and it was the human being knowledge that says, okay, I transform this data to this data. But when we talk about AI, so as a traditional system, we say it is finito, finite, it is not ambiguous, and deterministic. We know what it's going to do because we programmed it. So it is transparent, it is clear what it is going to do. But since the data that we are using are unstructured, just a simple question like this, find me the apples in this picture for the traditional system is difficult. Whoever of you works with images knows what I'm saying. So just saying, count me, for example, the bananas or whatever, with a traditional system, this is so complicated. So we have to say, okay, what can we do? And we started to say, what we humans are good in. So for example, if we see lions and mi viene gatto, cats, mi viene kids, ma non è kids, è cats. Cats and lions, we human beings are able to create clusters very easily, which is not easy at all for a program. So if I send this thing to a traditional program and I say, find me the cats and the lions, and it is quite impossible. Because what we do with our brain is, it is called pattern matching, template matching. We find the patterns that are similar and we put them together. So for example, the cat in the middle, which seems like a pantera, but we know it is not a pantera, it's a cat. Why? Because we have learned from data and from experience that that is a cat, it's not a pantera. Are you with me? Okay. So we say, okay, but there was something called AI. There were people working on this thing, because when I was working on this thing, and we are in the 90s, AI was a kind of hype. And then suddenly it went in a kind of sleeping wave, and then, whoa, it's now be returning. Why? Because in that sleeping part, we didn't have data. We didn't have high performance computing, we didn't have good hardware, we didn't have connections. So that meantime that internet was arriving and we are all starting collecting data, the people on tech said, hey, let's use something different, not the traditional systems, because they're not working good anymore. And so we started to say, okay, let's see the history of AI. You know that the first one who had this genius, a vision, was of this universal machine, was Turing, that he said, we want something that learns from experience. You know the film Enigma, you saw it, so it was so nice that he, thanks God, he supported us to win the war. And then there was this famous congress that John McCarthy created at Dortmund, and they invented for the first time the word AI. AI involves machines that can perform tasks that are characteristics of human intelligence. The definition that I prefer is the ability to learn without being explicitly programmed. So there is not a program. Okay? This is the point. There is not a program. Nobody has created but these systems learn. So a representation is AI, symbolic learning. We talked about it, to transform the knowledge into symbols, into rules. And then machine learning, deep learning, and generative learning, and we will talk about that. So machine learning, what does machine learning mean? Machine learning means that this system, learn from data exactly the way that we do. So we learn to learn which are the animals because we see them, or we see them on books, on videos, on films, or whatever. So somebody is showing us the things around us and saying, this is a cat, this is a dog, this is whatever. And we learn. This thing happens in our brain. No? So seeing something, somebody tells me, this is a cat, this is a, or without this somebody telling me, my experience tells me, oh, this is a microphone, or this is, because my experience puts me in the cluster of saying, this seems something. We were funny, with the professor, we were looking at this. And we were both thinking that it's an IoT device or something, which is not. So our brain was saying, technology, not technology. So we were in this classification phase of saying, what is this? No? Because I didn't see this for a long time. So there is a phase in which we have the training set, a phase in which we do the testing, and the phase in which we go on using it really. This is maybe the most technical slide that I want you to understand. These two approaches, supervised and unsupervised. So in the supervised approach, somebody says to the system, this classification correctly is A, B, C. It is our mom, our parents, that when we are kids say, this is a banana, eat it. So somebody's making this association, technically we call labeling. So we are labeling the things. So for a radiologist, the labeling that he does is he sees an images and say, clean. No, there is something. So his brain is trained to say, among all the images, this is okay, this is not okay. And he learned it because somebody taught him, and because he learned it by experience. Okay? In the unsupervised, we don't have this somebody telling us. So let's say Tarzan. Tarzan is in the jungle. He goes, and by experience, you understand, this is good to eat, this is not good to eat. And creates the clusters of the good things and the bad things. Is it clear? Okay? So how does this system work? Because if there is no program, there is no programming, there is no, how they work? Exactly like our brains. These are these huge, you're all mathematicians, so you understand it perfectly, huge matrices, and I give the input, and I, in the training part, say how to classify my input because I do the labeling thing. Okay? So for example, at the beginning, I give as an input images of radiologists. And I said, this is clean. So let's say it's binary. Clean, not clean. Clean, not clean. The arrows in the matrix are exactly like our synapses. They get activated or not. And they memorize in their patterns the classification. Is this clear? Everybody? So when you hear rete neurale, neural network, it is not obviously a real neural network. It is a matrix, a huge matrix with billions of connections, billion of stratification that does this classification and this clustering. We talk about deep learning when we don't, it is not enough to have one simple neural network, but we have a cascade of neural networks that work deeper and deeper and deeper. So let's say the first, have you ever been in an autonomous car, the self-driving car? I've been now to visit my daughter. She's studying in Atlanta, and she said, Mom, when you call the Uber, ask for Waymo. And I said, why Waymo? She said, put Waymo, you will like it. And I was waiting for a human being, and I saw this car, machine arriving, white with all the sensors and whatever on it. It's a self-guiding car. You just get in it, and it has a monitor. It is full of sensors and telecameras. While it goes, it classifies the things that it sees. So it's a transformation of the vision into decision, and it decides to go one part and another. At the first time, I was, because it is strange, but then you get used to it. So the Waymo and whatever, it is based on a huge amount of data, and we will see that we have trained these systems, and we will see it in a moment. So why? In AI, ethics is becoming so important. Because the question is, who is selecting the data? Okay? So if I select all the data that exists in the world, we know that the data are a representation of the reality. And if the reality has some prejudice, some biases, this goes in my training set. Do you get it? Okay? So let's say the historical data on which we are using these systems can enlarge and amplify these problems. And it is called unconscious bias. It is not because I want to use it in a tricky way, but I can also use it in a tricky way. So I'm doing a research, and I want to show something, because if I demonstrate that thing, I'm just joking, the industry that I'm working with is going to give me a premium, an award, and it says, show me that. Obviously, if you select the data in a particular way, you can show that. Is it clear? So the data that we are selecting are becoming so important. So the traditional AI that we are all used to use was, we call it narrow. So there was a problem, there was a neural network, a model, a fuzzy logic, something, and it was specific for that project. While with the Gen AI, we are now going to talk about things that are created. Before going to Gen AI, just a few names that I want you to know. When we talk about natural language processing, it's the ability of this system to transform our speech to text and text to speech, go in the neural network and find the things that we were asking. So in the last years, AI was in our lives, but we didn't know that, simply. It was there because tech people were using it, but it was not clear to us that it was already AI. So when you said to Siri, hey Siri, find me the music of Michael Bublé, Siri goes and takes the patterns, music, Bublé, and goes and finds the data. The same thing we can do, obviously, on documents. Object recognition, this is what I was talking. Is this familiar for you? Yes. What are you doing there? Choosing. So you are classifying. So you are, we say a word with the L. Labeling. You are labeling the data. So we are being used to train the systems, okay? And this is exactly, if you ever go in a Tesla, the Tesla, when you go, my husband has a Tesla, when you go, you see this monitor, and there is this classification of the things that you see. Once we were in Bolgheri, in Toscana, and we saw una pecora. How do you say pecora? Sheep. No? So, okay. And Tesla was fantastic. I have the video. And the Tesla was saying, bicycle, human, bicycle, human. So the system crashed because it wasn't clear. What is this? Because it never saw a classification of ships in the database. The same thing we have in face recognition, in biometrics, and again. As you see here, we have an underrepresentation of dark people. And I don't know if you ever saw the documentary Coded Bias. If you never saw it, write it and go and look at it. It is in Netflix. It's a story of this researcher, this lady. She was a researcher at MIT. She was of color, and she understood that the system was not working well on her because all the data that were used were on white people to train these systems, okay? So traditional AI and Gen AI. The difference between the dimension of GPT-3 and GPT-4, and now we have GPT-5, so you can imagine the billions of data that are there. So how does GPT work? Which is what is new? That I say that we use these neural networks to train, but typically every time we start the project, we start from scratch. Now, thanks to this OpenAI and all these projects, we have these large language models, LLM, that are models of the reality already implemented that we can use. So when you chat with ChatGPT, Copilot, DeepSeek, whatever, you are talking with a linguistic model which has been trained to go, I would say statistically, to the next part. So if you write to with WhatsApp, oggi vado a, on the basis of your experience, he suggests you, scuola, lavoro, no? So it's a concatenation of words, and this is exactly how LLMs work. But this is another problem, because if I say, sorry, I do it in Italian, but everybody, if I say rosso di sera, good. If I say donna al volante, so there is sexism in the knowledge that we have. And this goes in our large language models. So if you just try and write to ChatGPT this afternoon, draw me a successful person at 100%, it will draw you a man, handsome, white, pretty cute person. Never a disability, never a woman, never, you know? Because success in the neural network is connected with white and all the things that we know. So what we can do with this system, you know it. So for the people who are not using it, look at me. Start. Because it's like having a team of experts that support you. So at the very beginning, you start with a very simple interaction. But when you understand how it works, for me, it's a team of legal. In my company, we use it legal, strategic, for whatever. I have to send a mail which is a kind of assertive to a client. We say, hey, you have to pay me. ChatGPT prepare me the letter. I have to send a very, how can I say, nice letter. Prepare it. I have to do the presentation of today. This actually was made by me. But typically I say, hey, please, I have to talk about I don't know what. And there's a platform which is called Gamma, which is fantastic. Just you put the prompt, I want a website on the black singers in the world that I know, And it creates the website in 5 minutes. So a lot of jobs are going to die, simply. And the people who are already using these systems have the first mover advantage. Is it clear? Because if you don't use it, the other people are using it. It was funny for me going to, I don't know how to say, to a university which was, let's say, conservative. And things that the professors were saying, ChatGPT can never come into this university, it is cheating, you're not using your brain, you're doing whatever, blah, 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 blah. And then you understand that when you go to private schools, Bocconi, or in the States, they give the plus version to the kids because they know that there's a competition and everybody's going to use it. So why should I put myself in a situation that I'm not able to interact with these things? So these things can create text, can create images, and create coding. This is something that we tech people know, that these things can code. And this is why I'm so sorry to say that a lot of people that do coding are going to lose their jobs if they don't get it, that kind of coding is going to be so simple for these systems. I have to do something more. I have to do what is called analytical thinking, complex thinking. So the highest part, the division of the problem, not the coding, because the coding, they are aware to do that. Audio, music, and whatever. And again, who gives the data to them? Us. So when we said 5 years ago, there was this thing, do you want to see yourself as a kid, or do you want to see yourself as an older? Yes, please. What are you doing? You're giving all your data, all your images, all your things to the systems, and they're using it. So no wonder they have all these huge databases that are there. So now we go, let's say, in the gender part. So who is now using and creating these systems? Obviously, since this is the division between jobs, men jobs, and women jobs, the tech people in this moment are all men. I, as I said, studied here at the computer science department, and now 30 years ago, we were like 10% girls against men. And now it's the same. So it is 14%. It's not growing. So while in all the other so-called STEM things, chimica, pharmacia, even medicine, girls are even more than boys. In specifically computer science, there is a plateau. Why? Because everybody's saying that nerd people, sorry, my friend, but I'm nerd too. Nerd people are boring, they are technical people, they don't get it, they don't catch it, which is not true at all, but we have to change the narrative and to make something more inclusive. Technology is never neutral because I can decide what I want to do with it, no? And the fact that in this moment all the software is in men's hands is a problem. We say that the world is full of biases. These biases go into the data. These data go into neural networks, and they become decisions. So if I show you these pictures that obviously are sexist, and obviously there is a use of the woman body in a not proper way, our brain sees them and says, okay, nothing new. I already saw that. I know it's not okay. But okay, who cares? You laugh. You didn't laugh before. You didn't laugh. There was a girl in the same position. Why? Because we are biased. For us, seeing this thing is unfortunately normal. Seeing this is, oh, what a ridiculous thing. No? But it's the same. So why aren't we using the man's body to sell the motors? And also because they buy the motors. So why don't we do that? Because we know that traditionally there is this sexism. These are the 5 adjectives that I asked ChatGPT to tell me about a man and a woman. So dammi 5 aggettivi, 5, how do you say aggettivi? Adjectives I think it's a kind of assonance which is not okay. However, in English, in true English, aggettivi, I don't know. 5 aggettivi for a man of success. Determinato, visionario, competente, resiliente, carismatico. About a woman. Ambiziosa, lungimirante, empatica. I hate that. Because there is obviously, for all of them, competenza. And the fact that this is the narrative that we have about women is in these things. So if you ask, for example, Google Translator, the doctor was an expert, it translated il dottore maschio, era molto bravo. The nurse was an expert, l'infermiera, so it's a woman, it's a lady, was an expert. So in the translations, we have now, in this moment, these biases, which is so evident. So, well, it is not, the language is a, no, I know, but I was, now this is so interesting because the point is that in Italian, we have maschile e femminile. In a lot of languages, we don't have it. In my language, I'm half Iranian, so I speak Farsi. We don't have it. And since a part of my life, I used to be a politician also 5 years of my life, and I was what we call assessore. Okay, so I was the consultant of my mayor of my city. And in Italian, it is called assessore. And when, 10 years ago, I used to be an assessore and I signed the document, I signed it like Assessore Majidi. Now that I'm aware of how important the words are, I say, what a pity that I didn't fight to call myself assessora, because it is clear that I was a lady, etc., etc. So the people, the tech people, understand this immediately, that there is a kind of, there are two subsets, and the neural network is going to do that. The first thing that our first prime minister, a woman, did, la nostra Presidente Meloni, she sent, the first thing she did, she wrote a letter to all the organizations saying, call me il Presidente, non la Presidente. Why she did that? Because in our imagination and culture, il Presidente is more powerful, autorevole, than la Presidente. A lot of my good friends, they are advocates, lawyers. And I say, tu sei un'avvocata. No, I want to be an avvocato. But in Italian, it is not correct to call a lady an avvocato. It's like calling something which we do, incinta, incinto. It is, I mean, you have to say it in the correct way. And now, with the knowledge base and the database and the machine learning, everything is obviously becoming more complex. The same thing we have, as I said, in all the underrepresentations. So it is not only a problem of gender, it is all. These I can just, these were some examples that I created. Okay. So unfortunately, what is going to happen? That a lot of jobs are going to simply disappear. And we have to talk about this thing with our kids, with our collaborators, with our young people, to say, study whatever you want, but pay attention that these type of jobs are going simply to disappear. And which are these jobs? All the typical administrative, repetitive, all the things that are low value operations are going to die. Which are the works that are going to be there? All the works that have the technical in them. So, for example, radiologists, if they do the typical radiological process that in the next generation of machines is going to be embedded in the machine. Are you with me? So if the traditional radiologist does only this, it's not even needed anymore. So where is his specific value? In the experience and in the out-of-the-box reasoning that is able to do. So we have a lot of jobs. Somebody has to go, just go. Here you are. Tranquilla, arrivederci. Ciao. So there are a lot of possibilities of work, but in the same time, we have a lot of people who don't find a job. So there is this mismatch between people who are looking for jobs and don't find it, and the companies that are looking for people. I just can skip this one. So how can we do to create an AI which is really inclusive, which is really equal, and from the very beginning there should be a co-design involving all the diversities and all the users of the system. Okay? So when we tech people, which is typical, you talk with a company, a startup, and there is this group of 5, 6 men that are working on this thing. And you say, hey, what about including some women? What about including the experts of the system? What about including the users, the final users of the system? So tech people, which is true, unfortunately, also because the companies are like that, they say, okay, create me this software, which it doesn't work. A lot of time, we are not happy with the software that we have because it is not designed for the usability. And with AI, this is going to be more dramatic. Now we have also a law, an international European law, which says which things are not allowed. They are forbidden. And it is European. So for example, the mass surveillance is something that in Europe you cannot do, which is so typical in China. So depending on the country, these things are, obviously you can do not surveillance of massive surveillance. In Iran, unfortunately, they do it. They do it on women to find out who are the ones who don't have the hijab to punish them. So depending on where we are, technology can be used in an ethical or not ethical way. Is this clear now? Okay. So concluding just 5 minutes about my personal experience. This is a sentence that I always loved, and the opera always says that in your life, you have what you have the courage to want, which is true. So if I grow in a family which is open-minded, inspirational, motivational, and from the very beginning they say, you can do whatever you want, and you are a champion, and whatever, obviously, that person is completely different from a person who was born in a family where pay attention, don't do this, don't do that, don't go out, don't. Obviously, our neurons behave differently. It is, from a neuroscientific point of view, it is clear that the people who are courageous were trained to be courageous. It is not by chance, or because they had a very rough, tough life, and since when they were kids, they had to be courageous, this is me, or because in their family there was this motivational thing of saying, you can do that. So once I was growing and I did my experience as a politician, and I thought, why all my shareholders, stakeholders are men? Why every time I do something in the room, I'm the only woman? And that was so bad, because a lot of time, and I was not only the only woman, but also the youngest. So the two things put together was so frustrating. And I wrote a book, and I decided to write a book, and the data that I was studying in that moment in Italy were so bad. We were the fact that we were 79th in the report of the World Economic Forum on gender equality. Only 51% of the people of the world, of the girls, of women were working against 70% of European. So I decided to write this book, Donne 4.0, and it was a kind of autobiography saying to the girls, hey, wake up, because technology is arriving, it's going to change the jobs, it's going to change everything, and just give yourself power to do something. This work, this book was focused on the things that we call the 3 C's, competenza, cuore, coraggio. And I wrote this book for me, and also for legacy for my daughter, to say, Mom was this. This was around my 40s. I wrote the first chapters, and then around my 50s. I just did it, and it was interesting because I did it with Amazon, so it was auto-publishing, because I talked to two editors, two men editors, and they said, nobody's going to read this. And I said, okay, I do it by myself. And I did my TEDx. If you want to find it online, you will find it. The TED was about the absence of women in AI, and suddenly I was surrounded by women saying, I'm with you. I want to do this thing with you. And I was saying, this thing what? I wrote a book. I don't want to be a politician. But we created an association. So Donne 4.0 became an association. Now we are 200 people in Italy. We are now growing in Colombia. We are growing in Greek. So it is growing. And it is not the association of the girls with a degree in computer science at all. Half of us are coming from law, from or humanistic studies. Then during COVID, I was studying and thinking, and the Woman Life Freedom, you know, the movement in Iran arrived. And so I read a lot. And I took my master at the Yale University online in women's leadership. So I was wondering, what is happening? Why women are not talking? And Repubblica selected me from the 10 most important women in Italy, and I wrote the book. So the second book was with the new Cs, and the new Cs is very focused on men, asking them, please be consapevolezza means awareness, that your daughter, your wife, your friend is having a lot of problems that you can even imagine in the world. So if in Hollywood, where we can imagine these powerful women have the problem with Me Too, imagine a young girl in Afghanistan, what is facing. And the data said that 1 on 3 of women in the world have experience of violence, or physics, or economics, or psychology. Somehow there is a violence. So, consapevolezza, that the problem is there, culture, that a lot of time we say, well, this is the culture. Well, we can go against the culture. We just can't say this culture is not working anymore. The girls that go under infibulation, you know, the cutting of the sexual organs, who does that? The moms. Because somebody did a brainwashing on the mom saying this is something good to do. So the culture is not always something good. And creating communities which are aware. The association grew, and when we were creating our association, and we understood that we were working on the 5th chapter of the SDGs, of the strategic goals of the United Nations, we were so surprised that there was this 5.B, which was already on technology. So already they understood that tech can be really the leverage and we started to talk about AI with girls. We have this summer camp. We select the girls from all Italy, and we have this camp which is so nice, and they're growing. And we go in the universities and do open days for not only students, but for whoever wants to understand what AI is. The association is now really a point of importance. And this allowed me to be invited to New York, to the United Nations CSW, which stands for Commission on Women's Status. And then I understood this. The top countries that have achieved gender equality, none. Not even the North, you know, Finland, Sweden, they still have problems with violence and whatever. Step by step, I became famous. So I became a point of, and this helped me a lot, to create the association of the UN Women Italy Committee. So now I'm the president of the United Nations Comitato Italiano. And we are now presenting our proposal on the 24th of November to Ministra Roccella and to say, we think that these are the 10 things that we have to do in order to support girls to become moms, in order to support girls and students to find a job, to find a home. And so this is becoming really so important for me. I can just skip that. Concluding, if in the last 30 years technologies have really impacted our lives and AI is really impacting our life, I can just not accept that the World Economic Forum says that in order to achieve the gender equality in the world, we have to wait 134 years, which is incredible. But data said that in this moment in Italy, 1 on 3 is having some violent experience. In this moment, in the how many, 30 moments that I have spoken, every 10 minutes, a woman is killed by his ex-husband, ex-partner, somebody ex. We know the problem of Gino Cecchettin, Giulia Cecchettin, and whatever. We have selected Gino, I'm so happy about that, in our project He for She as our advocate. So we are trying to create really a connection between all the associations, all the realities that are there to really gain force together. So you know that Steve Jobs says that we need crazy people, and I think to be one of them, who thinks that we can change the world, are the ones that do. And you know Bill Gates, how they impacted really our lives. So my new really dream is to accelerate, not the closing. I know it is not something we can do that. But with technology, with awareness of everybody, accelerate this gender gap issue and finally have a normal life. Thank you.
So this is inspiring to see. Just the list. Are there any questions? Yes, please.
My nerd friend.
Actually, many of them, but I will select just one. So you've spoken a big deal about how the bias of many kinds gets into the training sets of these systems, especially because the data is unstructured. And then, I mean, one can speak a big deal on how this data is pre-processed, which is the true ethical dilemma, in my opinion, but whatever. Like, the argument goes, the training data is biased and corrupted, thus the model that we build out of it is corrupted, and this amplifies the biases in our society, for which there is proof, by the way, in research. However, the typical response to that is, yeah, but this is not the designer's fault, the IT, the programmer's fault. It's just that the bias and inequalities are in the real world, thus we are just building what best fits what we have. Furthermore, what we IT people can do is actually correct the model, which in turn is not possible for the human. So this is what we IT people, I'm not doing this, I'm just mimicking, by the way. So we're doing actually something better. What's your response to that?
That I agree, and the fact that IT people, men, typically, are in a group of people with women, maybe with not only tech background, but social background, feminist background, knowing the problems. And we together, we say, okay, these data are not okay, and we select the data. Or we select all the data, and we create neural networks that correct the other neural networks, the rinforzo that one neural network can do on the other, saying, when you see this problem, let me give you an example. Amazon themselves try to use AI in order to find in their own database of curricula the high potential people, and they use a neural network. After some results, they understood that all the people that were proposed were men. So they said, how come? And they understood that the data that they were using was up at 90% all men. So the system learned that if, the rule was, if the sex is men, okay, go around, go. Otherwise, just stop. So this was the system's macro generalization. But if we know that, and we say to the system, just clean, and if you say this first layer, go ahead and go on the competences, go on the experiences, and go whatever, it will work. So I perfectly agree that we, tech people, we have a huge power to clean these things, to do research in this sense. And there are a lot of group peoples working on this, and a lot of, I like so much this kind of course that you have created of multidisciplinarity. For example, in the States, or also alla Sapienza, there is the new master in informatica e filosofia, so philosophy and informatics, because we need the experience of these people to say ethically, not legally, ethically, is this okay or it is not okay? So there is a huge work, but I perfectly agree with you that if we tech people get aware of what is happening, we can really reduce the cleaning of the data. You know, we can just say this is not working. But I have, in my company, I have a part which we do startup incubation and acceleration and whatever. And a few months ago, a group of guys, they come to me, all boys, with this health app. And I was looking at it, and it was interesting because it was based on how many calories you eat, how much you work, the sensors, no information about the flow, maternity, menopause, nothing. And I was like, what is this? Oh, you're right. Oh, you're right. You're losing half of the world, you know? So we tech people have really to stop to talk among ourselves, and that's it. But this is not something theoretical. I was yesterday at the Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna, which I really love and I appreciate them. And my people, they were all men. So the people that I was talking in a technical point of view. So I stop being all men, find girls, just open, because otherwise we're going to perpetuate this thing. And the companies where I go, the tech companies where I go and I collaborate and I have speeches, typically 20% men, women, 80% men. And the women are all administration, human resource, marketing. There is no chief technology officer, a woman. There is an association in Italy of chief technology officers, and the girls are, let's say, 5%. No? So this is a problem.
Yes.
I've got a lot of questions, but I will select only one, maybe two. Okay. First of all, the problem of the division. Feminine, masculine, I've studied Latin, and so for me, it exists the natural. So why don't we start teaching, labeling the AI to learn the natural stuff? Like a psychiatrist, everyone knows that, you don't know. If I am a psychiatrist, what am I? And sometimes in Italian, but in many languages, then you say that the natural stuff, it becomes naturally the masculine. This is wrong. But there's something missing, an information missing in the data. So maybe we have to put this stuff inside. And the fact that maybe there are also many problems related to the fact that maybe you cannot decide what you are. So one has to deal also with this, no? And I think that the natural, that for us is very natural, since we all of us studied Latin, it was really much used to select stuff and to label stuff. And it was very fair in some sense.
It is like in English.
Multiple stuff, okay, this is not masculine, it is natural.
I agree.
If I say a male, I say cari tutti, for me, is not indicating the man. For me, it's natural. But then we started trying to understand how to change the final, and then we lose a lot of information in this way. Also, for Tesla, you have to recognize not man, but something that is man, women, and something that is human being, and then animal, this kind of animal, not man. But then it's a man, bikes, it's different. Then you have to learn AI how to label things with respect to, and then just tell to the AI, okay, these are roles. The roles has no gender.
But reality is not like that. I mean, even if we use in English, which is not feminine, neutral, also in English we have this segregation of jobs which are for men and for women. So language is important, but also the culture, but also the tradition. So if we think that humanity's story started, let's say, 6,000 years ago, the story that we know because we started writing. And in the last 100 years, everything changed. Okay, so if we think about, wow, so it was the woman was giving birth, so she needed protection. This is why he had to go and do the wars and do the finding of the job and finding the whatever. But now, thanks to the law, to the Quran, also women are working, so women are becoming more powerful and more autonomous. And this is why men are so angry, because their job that was protecting their family is not enough anymore. And this is why all these feminicides are happening, because they say, you are mine. I say, no, I'm not your mine, I was yours. And this is why they get angry. So we are in a revolution, a real cultural revolution. And this is going in the same way AI exploding. So we have to be all aware that there is a social revolution. Girls just don't want to be moms anymore. Some of them say, I can't do that because I don't have the money. But a great part of them say, I don't want to be a mom, which is so new, so new. My generation was, what's wrong with you if you don't want to be a mom? But now we understand and we agree and we respect, which is so new. But in the same time, we have families made by one person. So solitude is becoming something new. When I was an assessor, and there was this riflessione, it was 2010 and 2000, and I really saw the difference between people losing their jobs, but in the same time having a human network around them, and people losing their jobs and being alone. What a difference, you know? So my suggestion every time to the girls is study, work, but don't become a work alcoholic. There is a life outside. Create your family, create your friends, create your network, your community and whatever, because otherwise we are, yesterday I was in university, and all the students, they were not looking at me at the beginning. They were all just looking at this. So I was, that's tough. So, hey, attenzione. But this is a reality. So I agree, but that's a small part of the whole situation.
From the same point of view, the fact that also the exposition, if you ask AI to prepare you a letter or presentation, it will do this like a man.
Obviously.
Quoting the characteristics that you already quoted.
Yes.
So it does not know.
Because the data are biased.
Yes.
And if you tell him, so for example, when I say, give me the CV of Daria Majidi, without saying, I'm Daria Majidi. And ChatGPT creates, and seeing the words, entrepreneur, computer science, it says, he. Daria Majidi, he was a computer, he was, because in the template of the words, I'm not a woman. I am on the other part. Other questions?
Maybe it's not related to what we said right now, but while you were presenting, you said that there are those kind of jobs that are going to disappear, and I agree with that. I think that there is no chance that we can stop technology from growing up. But when you said, for example, that you can use AI to write a letter presentation, or maybe to do those kind of jobs that maybe we can value today as skills, do you think that if we say people that they can use AI to do them, they will not be able in the future to learn how to do this kind of things? And is that a loss or not?
It's like asking why we are using washing machines and why don't we wash all the dishes by hand? The same. The same. So we lost the ability to wash the dishes. Who cares? You know? So it's not a problem of if. It is happening. So we, as Italians, we have to be aware that in the same time we are having this, I say, domande esistenziali, in the other part of the world, in China, they are boom, 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 using these things, learning these things. So if I think that this is going to make us lose and stop our brain, no. Because if you work with it, it is stimulating. It is asking you. For example, if you say, I have my project in ChatGPT, I call him Einstein, and I say, hey, Einstein, I want to do this, you are my advisor. Ask me difficult questions. So it asks me difficult questions. So I want to start a company, I want to do, and he says, are you sure? Do this, do that. I asked for money. I said, okay, if I have to invest. We have a pool of advisors for free at our disposal. This is a reality. So why should I call my lawyer anymore to make a letter? I do it myself. Hey, Einstein, scrivimi una lettera, incazzata. Però, I have it. Give me the number of the laws you're using. The hallucinations that we had with ChatGPT-4 are disappearing, so it's becoming more and more reliable. And now, you know, it says also the sources. So you can check, you can say, okay, why did you? Sometimes they have hallucinations, but you have the source, and you can say, this is not how it works. But it's like we don't use cars because otherwise our legs get lazy. I agree. This is why we all go to the gym. But if you have to go to Milano, why should I go by walk? So technologies are helping us. It is our awareness, our how to use them. It's like a knife. I can use the knife to, you know, create a salad for my daughter, or I can use it to kill somebody. It's a tool.
I do have more of a philosophical question. So, what you're depicting is a future in which essentially no human groups could ever be able to recreate the technology that we will have in 10 years from now. It's even true now. So if you take the Third World War, and we raise up and there's no electricity anymore, no computers anymore, I don't think any group can actually try to achieve again the same level of technology, because of the fact that nobody has all the knowledge anymore. There's no Leonardo da Vinci anymore today. It's impossible, essentially. And what you're saying, and what is clear from the trend, is that this is becoming more and more so. So, as you're saying, lots of the jobs are going to disappear because nobody's going to code anymore for simple things. And that's going to be just the machines that are going to do it. Fine. Doesn't that have an intrinsic risk with respect to how our knowledge is going to be shaped and distributed all over the world? I mean, in a certain sense, it's like we are segregating ourselves to the highest levels, which do rely on the bottom parts, and then there's one Cloudflare problem like yesterday for 5 hours, and everything goes down, and nobody knows exactly what is happening, and everybody panics, and there's millions of people that actually, lose their, maybe could lose their lives because the machines don't turn on anymore in the hospital or things like that. This is going to be more and more relevant. So do you think this is going to happen, or do you think this is going to, there's a lot of work that will need to be done in order to prevent damages at this level. So what is your take on this, and what options do we have in order to prevent problems like this to destroy us? In a sense, what happened yesterday is very peculiar, right? So one simple, tiny little thing went down, all of a sudden, Visas, MasterCards, ChatGPT. The only one that didn't suffer was Gemini. All the other ones were actually dead. So what is your opinion on this?
My opinion is that being honest, that I'm not afraid of technology, I'm afraid of human being. When, let's say, 10 years ago, I was sure that, okay, humanity has grown, we are going in the right path, wars are diminishing, the poverty is decreasing. 10 years ago, I was, we are in the right path, it's going to be long, but everybody knows that we had the Holocaust, we had everything, but now, I'm saying, did we learn something? So when I just open my eyes and I see Gaza, and I see Sudan, and I see Ukraine, and I see US. My daughter is now studying in US, and she had to make the visa to go there. And she was invited to the embassy in l'ambasciata in Rome, and they asked all the students to open their social media. Is this the US that we remember? The freedom, the sogno americano, wow. And now she's there, and I was looking what is happening to Chicago, and I tested them, don't go to Chicago, because they said, Mom, we're going to visit. And I said, go whatever you want, don't go to Chicago, because she has my skin, and we have a tattoo, an Iranian tattoo, and I said, just don't go to Chicago, do whatever you want. And I was thinking, I'm Italian, she's Italian, we are worried here. What about the people that are living there? My sister, she lives in US from 30 years. She has the green card and whatever. And she says, the first time that we are all worried, what is happening? So technology, it's a second problem in my mind. In my mind now I have why we don't learn, and why the human avidity and the human, I don't know, because these are the people that are deciding, Trump, Putin, Netanyahu, and whatever, they are rich, they're old, go away, just leave us alone. And the question is, if they go away, is the next generation the same?
Worse.
Or worse? Exactly.
Exactly,
who knows? Because, may I say something that I was so worried when I learned it? In my mind, this gender thing was of our generation, and young people were finally free of that. Then I talked with the president of the Milano Court of Penal Court, and he said, you know that the violent pene, so penalties, I don't know how you say that, is for young people from 17 to 30. So 60% of the violent things are done by young boys to young girls. So young people. So it is not true that their generation is, peace and love. It is not at all. So this is what is really worrying. So if I'm not connected, and in this case, I'm a very particular nerd person, because, for example, now I just don't look at it. And I can do that for days. And everybody said, oh, Daya, you were not, I said, I was on holiday, oh, I was teaching. So we have to be all prepared to say, my life is not this. I have a life. This is a support. And if I'm not connected, who cares? You know, it's a lot of time it seems that, oh, there's a deadline, and then you think about it, what the hell, it wasn't that much important. I mean, maybe if we all learn to be more connected to the real problems, the fact that in Italy, poverty is growing, nobody talks about it. But poverty at the beginning of the 19th century was 2 billion people. Then it was like this. At one point, we were about 500,000 people, and they were all almost in Africa. Now it is growing, and it is growing in Europe, in Italy. So these are the problems that we really have. And if we are not connected, who cares? If we don't know how to do the things, did you ever saw the Non ci resta che piangere film? That these guys return to and they say to Leonardo, and he said, yes, allora il cammino va. I think that we know things that we are able to replicate. So we are not starting from scratch anymore, never. We know the idea. We know that electricity exists. We know that the fire exists. We know. So maybe everything is damaged. Our ability to recreate is short.
And if I may, the last very small question. Okay. So do you think there is a value in learning the stupid things that the machines are going to replace us with? I mean, in a certain sense, we are still teaching our kids to write with, in corsivo, handwritten things in corsivo. And then the question is, are these still useful things to have? Do you think these are shaping your minds in such a way that then you can actually build up on top of those and do something higher level? Or do you think these are just going to become useless things?
They add something to look at a question, because it's something that I'm asking since many times. And I remember that when I was in university and I did an exam, statistical mechanics, and then the exam, Professor Guerra asked me, have you ever calculated this integral? It must be done at least once in a life. And this would be my actual position, and that there are things that should be done at least once in a life in order also to interact with AI. So the point is, I have asked many times GPT to write me letters, changing, and I think she's, well, mine is, I use the female.
That's interesting, mine is Einstein. Oh, you're right, I'm going to change her name.
No, but I think that we should
intelligent to be a man.
The skill to interact with the topic. But I would be very curious to listen to
I
your
laugh
thoughts.
because in Iran we have hours, literally hours, of good calligraphy, okay? And I was so bad in it. And I remember those hours and we didn't use the pen, we used the inchiostro, you know? And this thing, it was a torture for me. And it was in our tradition that when you finish your studies, you have to have this perfect handwriting. And the hours we spend on that. And when I think about it, everybody was so, yeah, we have to do that. The same thing, do you remember when we were obliged to do the radice quadrata? How much time? So the question is this true that these things created the connections in our neurons so that now we can do? I think no. I think that we can use it in a very other way, very more simple, very more without, torturing kids, so they're not going to be able to write a good thing. So, for example, one thing that I'm worried about is the good teachers that can teach to young kids how to use these systems, because it's not their fault. It is the teachers that have to be aware of what is happening. And the approach in Italy is, we don't use it, ciao. Do you remember when ChatGPT came and we were the only country in the world that the Garante said you can use it? Do you remember that? In a lot of companies, they don't use it because the company says don't use it. So obviously, we were already not productive. And now the others are here, and now we're saying, don't use it, don't use it. Obviously, they're using it. So do we need these torturing things? I don't think so. I think that we are learning, and this is something I talk about with my friend. He's a neuroscientist, and he said, and I really agree, that our hardware is different from the hardware of the kids, because being native digital, they do things so rapidly that we are never going to be aware to do that. The way they move their thumbs. We are and then do, mama, allora, do. How can you do that? This multitasking thing. They have a different hardware, because from the beginning they were, So I'm positive. And if we are able to write in a very elegant Persian, who cares? This is my point.
Okay. So thank you for the very inspiring
Thank you for this
talk.
interesting interaction. Grazie. Grazie.